Hello and welcome back to Season of 12 Colors. In the last episode we went back in time and switching from our currently unnamed male protagonist, we instead went with the view of the story from the eyes of his younger sister Tangerine. And we learned that she had gone missing when she entered the realm of Jasmine, who appeared to be living in sort of a time bubble in the clearing in the forest. I assume by the change of color, last time was this orange tangerine colored chapter, and this one appeared right after. So let's see what this is about. Time of Jasmine, 6 years old. My time is different from anyone else's. I came to know it when the time of departure came with my mother. She gave me the name Jasmine. It was a wonderful name. I liked it. My father did too. Mom left when I was little. After that, father devoted days and nights to the piles of books left behind. He was looking for something. Yet, in the end, he found nothing to change our fate. I had known for a long time. Ever since my father started to spend more time with me, I had sensed it. After all, he had been too busy to take care of me for a long time. I learned how to read at an early age, but reading with someone else was something different. It was even more fun. How I wished father would smile more. For the first time, those calloused big hands reached for me, stroked my hair as though not accustomed to such gentleness. It tickled me a bit. Jasmine. His voice was tender and loving. He crouched down beside me. Father and everyone, we need to be away from Jasmine for a little while. You know, for work. But Jasmine is a bright and strong girl. You won't cry, will you? Of course. I was ready to keep myself company. Nothing could make me cry. How many days does father need to be away for work? Father had his back to me. The look on his face I had no way to see. Besides, the ray of the setting sun dazzled my eyes. It might be quite long. Managing to get the words out, he stuttered. But it could be as soon as well. If you take care of yourself, Dad will be back earlier. I promised I would behave and wait for him. You're a good girl, Jasmine. Father took me to the little house in which he collected his books. You may not be able to read them all, but it's all right. When Jasmine grows up, you will understand them, and Dad and Mom will come back, right? I'll try my best to grow up. When you're back, you will be surprised. Am I right, Dad? 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 That's fine. We made a promise. I'll stay here and wait for everyone. I can do well on my own. I can do well. Tears rolled down my face. I couldn't understand it. Father told me he would be back soon. As long as I behave, he told me. And I believed it. But for some reason, I knew deep down inside, just like with Mother, he would not be back. I was the peculiar one. I was the one who took the arc that went against the flow. I learned all this after reading the collection of books my father had left behind, and the stacks of his journals. Time is like running water. Unceasingly it flows into the direction of the future. It never looks back. But in the river of time there exist reversed whirlpools. Like floating threads, the lines touch each other and part away, forming movements of streams and waves. In extremely rare cases, relatively stable bubbles could form. The bubbles are wrapped up in the stillness of time. They are capable of containing small quantities of people or objects. People could even live there. And at one point, such a person had emerged who could live within the bubbles and go against the flow of time. They were the family of my mother. Nobody knows where they are from or to what place or time they will eventually go. They just float against the current in the whirlpools of time. That is all. Occasionally, the bubble would clash with the river of reality. They meet with ordinary people, fall in love, get married, and have children. The child at one point is bound to inherit the time of the mother. That is when the mother will be destined to pass away. Taking on their time, the child will live on and float into the past, on an arc going against the current. In Father's journal, a story was told of a time traveler and an ordinary man that fell in love and lived together. They had a child named Jasmine. That was the story of father and mother. And the child, just like her countless ancestors, rode on the arc of time. The journey continued. Okay, so this is definitely a bit of a jumbled mess. So I think the blue ones are what was presented in the first part as the male protagonist. But protagonist is a difficult word to put on this particular visual novel. Anyway, let's continue. 2010. A fine day brimmed over with bright sunshine, a summer just like then. After college entrance exam, again I came here. The last time I was here, I was not even in high school. Looking back, it was like a dream. Those big eyes and the wide-brimmed straw hat, the girl in the white dress, she came and went, mysteriously and airily as a fairy. I could not follow her to where she lived. She trusted me with her past self, or should I say her future self, just like I did with Tangerine. And then, unaware, I stepped into the land where everything was different. The soft soil smelled of fresh rain. Wild flowers created a mixture of rich colors on the green grass. I knew this place. Wah! A little girl jumped out from behind the tree. Apparently she was pleased to have caught me off guard. Long time no see, Mr. Rabbit. You just get naughtier every time I see you, I greeted her with a bitter smile. Huh? She tilted her head. The Jasmine of 9 years old sure did not understand. Nothing. The meaning of past and future was not clear to her, but she would know one day. Before that... Look, I'm here. I kept my promise. Brimmed with confidence, I gave her my biggest smile. Come to think of it, I only made that promise to the girl in the future. I was making a fool of myself. Oh, right. Jasmine clapped her hands in recognition. Mr. Rabbit promised to teach me how to make paper planes. I sure had become a friendly person in the future. By the way, on making paper planes, I did make progress. Not a small amount, if I was allowed to say. It was not something to brag about, but I had studied thoroughly during my high school years. Various designs of best-looking, farthest-flying, fastest-speed paper planes. I became known as the Grand Master of Paper Planes among friends. I didn't do this for her, though. Absolutely not. Paper shuffling, Jasmine took out a stack of paper from the house. Enough for next time. I pretended I said nothing. Mr. Rabbit, look at this, a swallow. Jasmine skipped along and showed me her work of art. Not bad. It deserved my praise. The child was a fast learner. She basically got a grasp of all my research findings of the last 3 years in a single morning. My pride was hurt a bit, to be honest. Hey, do you think it can fly farther if I make it like this? Theoretically, yes, I told her. Her eyes were shining with excitement. Can it reach the sky? That would be a bit tough, I said. The moment I spoke, the look in her eyes saddened. If that is true, Mr. Rabbit, would you teach me how to make a better paper plane? I wanted to fly higher and farther. She cheered herself up and made a fist. A new piece of paper was handed to me. Wait a second. I was not willing to admit that I had taught her everything I knew, but at the same time I also wanted to know the answer. Why do you want it that high?
Because I want the messages to reach Mother.
Eye-sparkling, Jasmine said with great spirit.
If I write letters on the paper planes, it will be like letters would grow wings. And then it can fly through the sky to where Mother lives, right? Am I right, Mr. Rabbit?
Little Jasmine looked at me, seeking my approval. Her eyes were full of hope. You're right. I stood up and stroked her hair. Let's make better paper planes.
Fight on!
In the small private world, we experimented and made various types of paper planes. From drawing paper, pages of books, notebooks, birds of different types were born in the tips of our fingers. Streamlined design, paper birds resembling swallows and rockets. We let the messages fly, riding on their wings. Eagle Fighter, new type, test flight number 22. Start!
Fight!
Those little white wings would be lifted by the wind. Every time the paper planes took off, the two of us ran after it and called out to give it strength. We witnessed its journey into the distance and its crashing into the bushes. And then, after a second of frustration, we would start to make another generation of aircraft, by which I meant a better paper plane. The future, as I knew it, was not filled with joy and laughter. There would be sorrow and there would be tears. But I only had this moment. I wanted her to smile like she did.
New record!
Yeah. We lay down in a pile of paper planes, too exhausted to move a muscle.
Hey, Mr. Rabbit.
When a touch of gold crept into the sky, Jasmine spoke.
I'm very happy today.
Great for you. At least I didn't let down Jasmine of 9 years old, I thought. And yet, she continued to speak. The words seemed too heavy for her age.
It's fine even if they can't reach the sky. I knew all along.
She hugged her legs and huddled up, muttering. She looked into the distance.
Paper planes could never reach the sky after all.
She chuckled, as if laughing at herself.
Mother and everyone else, they're gone.
Jasmine paused. She grabbed her own arm, hugged herself tightly, shaking all over without a sound. I was an idiot, a fool. The child's past, what she experienced, I knew it all, didn't I? Why was I simply trying to play with her, treating her like an ordinary child? What a fool.
Oh.
She seemed to have remembered something and jumped up.
It's getting late.
With a smile I knew all too well, she had dismissed the sadness. You're right. She stood up, her eyes narrowed to look into the setting sun.
Mr. Rabbit should go home as well.
Jasmine smiled and skipped in front of me. Her eyes were as bright as ever. Wait. It was... You know what? I'm not feeling reluctant at all. I told her she was really something, a great girl.
Of course, because I know it.
The glow of the sunset colored her cheeks red, a brilliant smile.
We'll meet again, won't we?
She made no effort to hide the hope in her eyes. Of course we will meet again, I promised her, and that was for my future self. And I picked up the paper plane on the ground and looked up. I could hear an inquisitive voice. The message will reach its destination. Holding my head up high, I told her, or rather I told myself. As if to strengthen the words, I balled up my hand into a fist. If you want to convey something to someone, they will eventually receive it. The sound of shuffling leaves approached from afar. Look. I turned to look at the 9-year-old Jasmine, imprinting her figure into my memory. Your dream will come true. Facing the wind, I let go of the paper plane. For an instant the gust of wind lifted those wings. Without looking back, the paper plane soared up into the sky. If I could do anything for her now, anything at all. Remember, her figure grew thinner, faded into the golden sunset. Your dream will come true. I did not look back. I knew it. The ground underneath was no longer the grass with the colorful wildflowers. It had returned to the ordinary clearing in the woods. But just like each time we said goodbye to each other, her words echoed in my ears.
I believe it will.
Oh. Well, we've only spent about 15 minutes, so let's continue. She's 12 years old here. Oh, so she's essentially a Benjamin Button, at least, but stuck in time. Okay. At least that's what I think so far. It's pretty convoluted, I must say. I woke up from a dream. Recently, I dreamt of the past a lot. Or should I say the future? A breath of wind broke the silence of the space. The dreariness was swept away in an instant. I jumped out of bed and ran straight to the edge of the woods. Wind could enter from there, which meant my bubble had once again met with reality. Right down from the sky, up above, the bright sunshine of summer cascaded. Birds started to sing in harmony, accompanied by the rhythm of the brook. The joy, every time I met with reality, he would come, and I was not alone anymore. Last time he had been a college student, this time a high school boy perhaps. I pictured him to be more childish, less thoughtful and caring, but it did not matter either way. I had practiced and practiced making paper planes. This time I was determined to surprise him. Would the he of now be interested in? Oh, and the books of fairy tales we read, I would love to read them with him again. Yet I was afraid he would treat me like a child. I couldn't make that decision. And I had grown taller. Finally. This time I would not make a blunder when we compared height for sure. What's taking him so long? He wasn't as punctual as he would be when he grew up. That was to be expected. Well, since we were bound to see each other again, we could take our time. After all, we had made a promise in the future. The first time we met, I was very little. Having left my father and the rest of the world for not long, I wasn't prepared for anything. I was scared being all by myself, all alone. That was when he appeared before me. Almost the same age as father. He was so tall and had such broad shoulders. Every time I looked at his sunshine smile, I felt there was nothing to be afraid of. It was taking too long. I almost fell asleep waiting. That's when I decided, this time I would go for him. The road was rougher than it would be in a few years. I avoided the rocks and holes carefully and finally made it to the foot of the hill. Guess what? He was taking a nap under a tree. Although still madly happy to see him, I just couldn't believe it. He would still remember about our promise though. But that would be the promise from me 3 years apart from now. I'd heard about it. I would become a lot more mature and feminine. I sort of envied myself. Now? Despite of everything, I was younger than he was at this point in time. Thank you. Yes, that would be my excuse for being so shy and clumsy. And getting buried in a mountain of books. Perfectly excusable. Besides, if we had to start talking about this, how did this troublemaker of a boy grow into such a wonderful gentleman? It was totally beyond me. He even pretended he would tear my book and made a fool of me just because he was so much taller. Oh, and it was me who taught him how to make paper planes. Me. He looked like he didn't care at all about it. Despite all this, he did show up when I was in trouble. Well, The trouble was a bunch of kids who snatched my hat. I reflected on this. All in all, he was who he was. There was no doubt about that. He did not have any memory about the promise of Paper Plane yet, but just like it had always been, I was relieved to be by his side. I just wished it could last forever, and I said it without giving it much thought. We waved goodbye and made the promise to see each other tomorrow. The same smile as always. But I knew it would be hard to realize. The contact, it never lasted this long. I was satisfied. But each time I couldn't help thinking, if only I could step out of this reverse current of time, if only I could live under the same sun as everyone else, how wonderful would that be? I had tried. Nothing worked. I tried to run farther and farther away from this motionless garden, or mingle into the crowd, carefully keeping in touch with other people. I even tried to tie myself up to a tree. I had done everything I could to hold back the current of the river of time. But every time when I opened my eyes, I would always find myself in the same old place. Back to the silent small world, where everything stood still. Just like what Dad said in his notes. No matter how hard you hold that hand, it will always be washed away in the raging torrent called time in the blink of an eye. My heart started twitching. I crouched to hold my knees, burying my face in my arms. In the evening, rain started to fall. It was a rare view for me, yet I had no mood to savor it. It reminded me of what he had told me a long, long time ago. Something bad had happened. On a rainy day just like now, a little girl named Tangerine, whom I had not yet met yet, disappeared in the rain. Did she slip and fall off the hill, or did she accidentally go into another time? In any case, I made a promise with him. Yes, I would protect the child at all cost. When the rain stopped, the feeling of the wind on my skin was growing faint, as was the smell of the humid air. The time was up for me. Sitting on the stairs of the little house, I gazed at the frozen evening sky. But there was something I didn't want to give up yet. I wanted to say goodbye to him, just one last time. When next time came, I wasn't sure if I would be able to say goodbye with a smile like last time. I stood up. The space was shrinking. Nothing much was left. I looked around desperately. And the figure I knew all too well appeared miraculously. Just like Mr. Rabbit in the fairy tale, always showed up when you needed him the most. I was so happy I could cry, but I had chosen to say goodbye with the brightest smile I could put on. That would be best. Of course I know it all. All the memories of the past and all the promises of the future. You would protect them, and the boy standing in front of me would eventually grow into a reliable man. If you ever see me in the future, please smile and say hello for me. Well, let's continue. I have been writing this diary for some time now, since the second time I met him. Before that, I had read a lot of books. I also went through Father's journals and had gotten some idea of what happened in the past. When I understood what I was facing then, it had really been depressing. But I had come to believe that letters with wings could fly into the sky. I tried to cheer myself up, writing messages on pieces of paper. After that, I made them into paper planes, throwing them to the sky with the hope that someone would eventually read them. That way I would be less lonely. But the world stood still. It was as small as the clearing around the house. The paper planes could never fly out of it. They always spun around in circles and fell near the edge of the bushes. That was a lie. Paper planes could never deliver my message. Whenever I thought of it, the pain came alive in my chest. The mere idea of it had been an emotional anchor for me, and it was falling apart. And then, on that day, My paper plane flew past the treetops, crossed the border into the other side of the bushes. I couldn't believe my eyes. Slowly I made my way to the other side. He was there, like promised, at the other side of the garden. Happiness filled me, yet I was angry with him. He had said he would come whenever I needed him, but he left me waiting for so long. All alone, devastated by loneliness, unbearably afraid all this time. It was like the whole world was on the verge of breaking down. But you were here. You kept the promise. That was all I could ask for, except one thing. A little punishment for keeping me waiting for so long. Prepare to be surprised. Well, 25 minutes is a good amount of time for an episode, I think. So, we shall definitely see where we go to next. But until next time, take care.